Everyone thinks the Epiphone Hummingbird is just a pretty face with that ornate pickguard. But here's the thing, if you pick the right version, it is a legit studio workhorse because Epiphone's latest build uses real tone woods, short-scale playability, and modern electronics to get you most of the way to the classic Hummingbird sound without the boutique price. I went in skeptical, tested it for 3 weeks across rehearsals, recording sessions, and a live set, and what I found doesn't line up with the usual budget guitar cliches. You've seen the thumbnail, you're expecting bling. But the surprise is in the mids, the feel, and how it sits in a mix. Before we dive into what I discovered, quick heads up, if you're already leaning toward it and want the best current price, I dropped a link below. But hang tight because a couple of gotchas I found will save you time, tone, and potentially a return label. Setup: I was hunting for a square-shoulder dread that wouldn't fight me. My last 2 budget acoustics either felt stiff or boomed in the low end so badly that every recording needed surgical EQ. I needed something I could strum behind vocals, fingerpick without fretting hand fatigue, and plug in without that piezo quack. The Gibson Hummingbird sound is the dream: warm, controlled lows, vocal-friendly mids, sweet top, but I'm not dropping several grand. Enter Epiphone's Hummingbird from the Inspired by Gibson line. Solid Sitka spruce top, solid mahogany back and sides, short 24.75 scale, bone nut and saddle, rounded C neck, 43 nut, scalloped X bracing, and a Fishman sonotone with sound hole controls. On paper it checked every box, but let's be real, specs don't make music. The question was whether it actually delivered in hand, in a mix, and under stage lights. Confrontation. First test was unplugged tone at home in a controlled 47% humidity room on fresh phosphor bronze 1253s. Out of the box, the action measured about 2.2 m on the low E and 1.8 m on the high E at the 12th fret. The guitar weighed roughly 4.5 pounds. Strumming an open G, the note bloom was fast, sustain around 11-12 seconds before decay, not the canon of a rosewood dread but intentionally focused. The bass is present but reined in, the mid-range sits forward in that classic Hummingbird way that supports vocals. Fingerstyle on the 5th-9th frets had a woody, compressed sweetness that I haven't found in laminate-backed competitors. But then playability, that 24.75 scale and rounded C neck changed the game. Bar chords felt easy, vibrato felt natural, and string tension was noticeably looser than your typical 25.5-inch Taylor-style dread. Intonation checked within 3 cents at the 12th fret across strings. Fretwork was clean, with only a couple of micro-scratchy fret ends you'd feel if you really went looking. Nut slots were cut well, though my B string pinged once until I rubbed in a dab of graphite. Recording test next. I tracked it with a small diaphragm condenser at the 12th fret, 8 inches back, plus a room mic. Then I did a quick DI take straight from the Fishman sonotone into a clean preamp. Mic'd, the guitar layered beautifully, no sub-bass mud, no cardioid thwomp that eats up headroom. The top has a slightly dry character that keeps strums articulate, but then here's where it gets interesting, the DI tone. It's usable for live, definitely. At the raw DI stage, it has that expected undersaddle edge if you dig in too hard. A gentle high shelf cut around 6K Hz and a narrow notch around 1.6K Hz smoothed it right out, and an acoustic IR took it into record-ready territory. Live test was a 90-minute coffeehouse gig through a small PA. I left the onboard controls at about 70% volume and a hair of tone, then did the rest at the board. No feedback until I got cheeky and stood right over the wedge. A quick notch at 120 Hz and a sound hole plug solved it. Tuning stability was solid with the 18-1 vintage-style tuners once the strings were stretched. Battery access is straightforward. Sound hole controls are a little awkward mid-song, but that's the trade-off for a clean look. Build and details. Multiply binding is tidy, the aged gloss finish and heritage cherry sunburst vibe look fantastic under lights, and the iconic pickguard art is actually part of the charm here. Case is not included, so budget for a hard case. My only cosmetic nitpick, the edge of the pickguard had a tiny lift at the corner, a known quirk that a careful press fixed. Discovery. The most surprising thing I learned after 20+ hours of play is that the short scale and bracing don't just affect feel, they shape your arrangement. I found myself strumming a little lighter, getting a more even sound that left space for vocals and piano without scooping mids. Compared side by side with a Taylor 214C, the Taylor had that glassy top and tighter low end, but the Epiphone sat under the voice better for folk pop and country. Against a Yamaha FG5, the Epiphone felt softer to the touch with more character in the mid-range. And versus a real-deal Gibson Hummingbird standard, no, it doesn't have that last 10–15% of airy complexity or the hand-finished finesse, but the Epiphone gets convincingly close for a fraction of the cost. Here's what nobody tells you: not all Epiphone Hummingbirds are the same. The older Hummingbird Pro uses different woods and has a different voice. The Inspired by Gibson Hummingbird with the solid back and sides and bone hardware is the one to target if you want the step-up tone. That's the one I'm reviewing here. Too good to be true. It's good, not magic. The electronics are practical, the unplugged voice is honest and musical, and the feel can make you play better longer. That combination is rare under $1,000. Now that you know the key differences and what it actually sounds like in the real world, this is one to grab before the next restock or price bump hits. I've linked the exact Inspired by Gibson version I tested in the description for the best current price and availability. Bottom line, if you're a singer-songwriter, a strummer who records at home, or a player who wants that warm, mid-forward hummingbird vibe with easy playability, the Epiphone Hummingbird Inspired by Gibson is a strong yes. If you need bluegrass canon volume, want ultra-bright modern sparkle, or constantly tweak onboard EQ mid-song, look elsewhere. For the rest of us, this isn't just couch jewelry. It's a reliable tool with real tone, honest feel, and a voice that sits right where you need it. Bottom line, ignore the bird art, buy it for the mix.